Hello friends, in this video I am going to discuss one numerical which is related to concepts of rectilinear motion. So let's start the numerical which is related to concepts of rectilinear motion, and the numerical is: a car travels from one station to another station along a straight line. First half of the distance is covered by the velocity 80 km per hour, and the second half of the distance is covered with velocity 100 km per hour. This will be kilometer per hour. Determine the average speed of the car. Here we are considering a car which is traveling from one station to another station. Let us consider there are two stations, station A and station B. So the car is traveling from this particular station A. So car travel from one station to another station. So this car is traveling from A to B, and this is following a straight line path. So this particular path is representing the trajectory of the motion. So this is a straight line path, and there are two parts we are considering. Let us consider this point C is representing the midpoint of this particular path AB. So if we are considering the total distance traveled by the body or the car from A to B is S. Between C and B, the distance will be S by 2. So what is given here? The first half of the distance is covered by the velocity 80 km per hour. So for this A to C, the velocity we are considering as V1. So this V1 is representing 80 km per hour, and the velocity after this midpoint C for the second half of the distance is covered with velocity 100 km per hour. So this particular velocity is represented by V2. So this V2 for the second half of the path is 100 km per hour. So for this condition, we have to determine the average speed of the car, and here we are considering the distance between A and C is S by 2, and the distance between C and B is S by 2. So here we have the velocity for these two halves, A and C and B, and the distance we have, that is S for the total path, and S by 2 and S by 2 for the two halves of the path. So let's start the solution to find out the average speed of the car. So this is our actual diagram when any car is traveling from A to B, and at the particular midpoint C, between A and C velocity is V1, and between C and B the velocity is V2. Now let us consider the time taken by the car to cover this complete distance A and B. So here we are considering the total time taken by the car to cover the complete distance S between A and B is T. So this T we can divide in two parts for two halves. So for the first half, if we are considering T1 is the time taken by the car to travel between A and C, and for the second half, if we are considering the time taken by the car between C and B is T2, so this T will be equals to T1 plus T2. So here the total time we are considering as T1 and T2, where T1 is the time taken by the car to cover distance between A and C, and T2 is the time taken by the car to cover distance C and B, between C and B. So here we have the complete or the total time. Now if we define this total time, so this total time we can define as T1 plus T2. So T1 we can define for the first half, and for the first half we are taking distance S by 2 by V1, and for the second half we are considering distance S by 2, so it will be S by 2 by V2. So this particular term is representing the T1, so it will be S by 2 by V1, and this for T2 it will be S by 2 by V2. So with the help of this particular term, we can define the total time taken by the car to cover the distance between A and B, and the final equation for this will be, so the total time taken by the car is S by 2 V1 plus V2 divided by V1 V2. So here this is the equation for the t. Here we have to define or determine the average speed of the car, so we can apply the formula of speed in terms of the time. So if we define the average speed, so it is always equals to s by t, meter per second. So the total distance which is traveled by the car divided by the total time taken by the car to travel the total distance, so it will be s by t. So we have the value of t. So s value we don't have, but here this value of t we have in terms of s. So s value will be as it is, and this term t we will put here in denominator. So it will be, this will be our equation. So as per this term we can define the equation which is related to average velocity, and the equation will be, the average velocity will be 2v1 v2 by v1 plus v2. Now we have the value of v1 and v2, 80 and 100, and we will put those values here and we can find out the average velocity. So our average velocity as per the equation will be 2 into 80 into 100 divided by 80 plus 100. So the final value will be 88.9 kilometer per hour. So this is representing the average speed or average velocity of the car to travel the complete distance s from point A to B. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with Ekeeda and subscribe to Ekeeda.